So I'm super excited. I'm hoping that it comes through in this video because I actually just resin cast my very first Generation 2 Bionicle mask, and I did not expect this to be the first one. It's also my first attempt at dark green, and it's like a perfect match, so I'm just going to show it to you. I'm super excited. Okay, so this is actually what I cast, and the reason I cast this one first is because of the Jungle Beast, which you've seen briefly in another video. I made a video about it, but I will be featuring it again here too because I've made some changes to it, and I will continue to make changes. However, this looks gorgeous. I am so happy with how it came out. Interestingly, no, this is not trans neon green. There's some chemistry reasons why it's not a match for this color, and I'll talk about that here in a moment, but suffice to say, I'm still really happy with the blend and with how everything came out. It's sort of a trans bright green, but a little less saturated than that, and that's fine with me. In terms of the dark green here, and I'm trying to kind of show you, but the lighting angle is not going to make it super easy. You can see that that's a pretty much a dead ringer, so I'm not going to complain at all. Now, this is still very soft. I pulled this about 14 hours into its mold. Maybe 13 hours even. So this is a 24-hour resin, meaning that it needs plenty more time to actually cure, and it needs a few days to really even set up, like to become like plastic-like in how hard it is. And that's fine. I had to pull it though. I was honestly thinking that this was not going to work. We're going to take a look at it on the Jungle Beast here in a minute. But the reason being is typically what I do when I make a mold is I do a cup mold, which is a thing that I've been kind of developing for a while. Cup molds are nothing new, but the method I'm doing is kind of my own thing because I like to experiment, right? And typically what I would do if I had a mask like this beast mask here is I want to fill in the inside first, rather than just filling it all with silicone, trying to cut the eyes out or trying to tape off the eyes, which can cause issues later depending on what colors I want to make the mask. I use a little bit of clay. I've talked about this in a previous video too, but essentially just plug the eye holes from the outside with clay, fill the inside with silicone, allow the silicone to cure, pull away that clay, put on a little bit of petroleum jelly inside of the eye holes, and that acts as a physical barrier so that the next layer of silicone you pour on it can't bond in those eye holes, and that means that they'll separate. So your eyes won't be locked into your mold, and that just saves a lot of processing, a lot of time, and it's very clean overall. However, I neglected to mention one other thing. Usually when I do that, I will also make a funnel that is attached to the mask that comes out that I pour the silicone around so that there's a physical hole in the silicone that connects to the mask. And the reason for that is because I need this funnel to connect to that piece so that when I fill this with resin, the resin has somewhere to go, right? I forgot to do that step, and I realized it after I had put it in the silicone. I was like, oh crap, this is... So whatever, no big deal. I figure worst case scenario, I'm sacrificing silicone, but best case scenario, I can cut it out and use it as sort of a squish mold, which is a different type of mold, but it has some similarities. And this is still a one-piece mold, so it is different from that too. Suffice to say, I didn't expect it to work, but I am working with a 24-hour resin, which gives me plenty of playtime with it at the very least, which meant I could just be very patient, you know, squeeze the mold, get this opening here, push the resins that I want down in there, make sure it goes all the way down, and then just keep pushing more and more and more resin, pumping the air back out, because as I squeeze it, the air pocket builds right here on the bottom, and I just push that and it pushes the bubbles. It does work. It just leads to a higher failure rate. I was expecting this fully to fail, and it didn't, and I'm so happy. The bright side of this is that it means that there's no processing of this piece other than the eye holes. I'll have to cut out a little bit of flashing, which hardly even shows up on camera, but that's easier to do when the mask is fully cured because those little flakes become brittle, and you just run right through them with a knife like no problem. When they're soft like this, they tend to bend out of the way of the knife, and so it's just harder to cut. So Jungle Beast, this is what he looks like as of now. I will be redoing the function slightly. I want to kind of move it just because right now it's reliant on a ball joint, which is a little bit difficult to use. And also because I now have these shells on the front to bring a little bit more of that dark green color in there. And that actually inhibits some movement of those arms forward and backward. So hopefully I can actually adjust the length that the arms can move as well. But this is what it looks like with the mask. And that's so good. Oh, I love it so much. Like it looks near official, even without the trans bright green shells that I'd like to use here, or Lego would probably have done trans neon green since that's kind of the tie-in color for these guys. And on top of that, I would personally like to have seen this piece recolored in dark green, which I may actually end up making a mold for in the future. We'll see though. I'm sure that there are bootlegs out there that I could get in that color if I really needed to. That said though, really fun. So the reason I didn't originally want to cast this mask before I owned it was because I'm not a huge fan of the way it connects to the face. It connects like any other mask, but you see that it leaves a lot of the chin exposed, right? However, in playing around with it, I discovered that you can just pull the mask off, and the little bit of a gap that's behind the jaw there, behind the chin, is the right size for the mask to clip into that spot instead, as you can see. And you'll hear an audible click too. And it covers the jaw that way, it covers the chin that way. And more interestingly, the eye holes actually line up now. Now, they're too wide to line up from head on, but if you turn the mask sideways, you will see the eyes through it. And that's pretty significant in my opinion. So it definitely helps the mask a lot better. It does limit the connectivity to that axle slightly just because some things get in the way. And of course there's still some movement in the mask, but there is in its natural connection too. I'm not going to complain about that. But I believe you may even still be able to use this with the jaw. So that's something I'll have to test, of course. A lot of fun either way. I'm very glad to have seen that. And I do like the design of that mask. It looks just evil. And it does also sort of harken back to Umarak, the hunter's mask in its shaping. It has the high cheekbones, the crystalline kind of structure to it. So those masks really complement each other as well. With that, with all of this being said, I'm super happy with it. The last thing I want to mention before ending the video was the trans neon green. Why is it not transparent neon green? Well, I actually tested this first, and the problem that I have is, as of right now, the pigment that I am using to get a fluorescent trans neon green color is a water-based pigment, but resin is oil-based, and those obviously don't like to mix, especially in larger quantities. I've been having pretty good luck with small quantities of water-based liquids mixing in fine with my brand of resin. That may change, of course, depending on what brand you use. However, to get a color as saturated as this, I have to use way more of this pigment, and that becomes a problem because once there's too much there's just too much water to like dissolve into solution properly, and so it emulsifies instead. And that's not a big issue on its own, but if you want something that's transparent, it becomes a problem. If you've ever taken a bottle of, say, like French dressing, or even just a bottle of water and oil and shook it up, it goes from being transparent water, transparent oil, to being kind of an opaque-ish, I was going to say homogeneous, that's not the right word, I don't think, but or I guess technically it's whatever. Anyway, but all the bubbles kind of suspend, all these microscopic bubbles suspend in this solution, not mixed together, and so the light just really can't get through it. It doesn't diffuse properly, which means you don't get that transparency here. You'd still get something that's a translucent color, sure, but that's obviously not what I'm going for. For something that's this thin, I didn't think it would matter, but even in my tests with thin resin, it was just so prevalent, I guess, that yeah, you couldn't see through it at all. I was like, never mind, I'm not going to worry about that. I had trans bright green as sort of a backup color I could do for this, but even that was still going to be too much to saturate. This is pretty close to trans bright green. It's just not quite as saturated as trans bright green is, and maybe slightly more blue, and that's okay. I'm not going to complain about that. The mask still looks chef's kiss, you know, so I'm very happy with it. I'm actually modeling the mask right now in Blender too. It's going to take time because I'm a novice for one thing with Blender, and also it's a rocky textured mask. It's going to take some time to be remotely accurate. I am doing it by eye as well, so it's not trying to aim for like perfect accuracy or anything, just something that's passable in Blender, but still looks respectable and identifiable. Once that is in Blender, then I will try and throw together the instructions as I mentioned before, or the studio file, whatever the case, for this model. And I of course want to mess around with that back function as it stands. If you haven't seen that video, by the way, the function is literally that you can move the tail up and down and the arms move up and down with it in the same direction. So very similar to how, is it Tarek that does that same kind of thing where you move its tail up and its arms go down or whatever? Something along those lines. So yeah, it's a really good build. I'm super happy with it. But that's pretty much it for this one, guys. So if you did enjoy the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. And of course, I plan to mold the mask more since I have it now, cast it more. And I'm hoping to do 2 more beasts, one for stone, one for ice, though that will be in the future. I don't know when exactly yet. And my thoughts right now, someone mentioned in the comments of the video talking about Jungle Beast that they thought about making a beast for stone called Cyclone Beast, and I really like that idea, so I may steal that from them. And by that I mean I might make something called Cyclone Beast as sort of an homage to that. I don't know what functions are going to be on either of these, and I don't even really know what color schemes yet. I'm thinking that, like Lava Beast, whatever the Ice Beast is called, I haven't named it yet. It's probably going to have no trans lime green except the head. So I think I'm going to do white and trans dark blue for that. And then for the stone character, whatever it is, for that one, I'll probably do reddish brown with the lime green. It actually looks pretty good together. So that might end up being what I attempt, but we'll see. So yeah, if you enjoyed the video, like I said, make sure to check out the Discord, Instagram, and Patreon in the description. If you want to support the channel and get some perks, make sure you're subscribed and you can join the conversation in the comments. Plus, it lets you know that more videos like this are coming up and tells the algorithm to send them to other people. Thanks for 2,500 subscribers. Take care.